The title of this video is Have the Seals Been Opened? It came to my attention today that there is some sort of I don't know what to call it, a rumor, a conspiracy, an idea that the seals are being opened right now. And the seals I'm referring to are the 7 seals of Revelation. 6 that are outlined in Revelation 6, and then a 7th that's outlined in Revelation 8. This is one of the stupider things I've heard. The seals were opened in the vision. In the vision that John had, these seals were opened. So to say that the seals are now being opened makes absolutely no sense. The seals were opened in the vision by Christ. They're not being opened right now. Listen to the language of Revelation 6. I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror, bent on conquest. So these are seals of a scroll, and they're being opened, and he is revealing things that are going to happen in the future. I think what people are saying when they're saying these seals are being opened is that this is now happening. But can you really trust what they're saying when they're not even using the correct language? The seals have already been opened. They were opened by Christ in the vision. Something that I heard today is that the 5th seal was opened, and the person had the date even. The date when this 5th seal was opened. Let me read what it says to you. Revelation 6 verse 9. When he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who'd been slain because of the word of God and the testimony they'd maintained. They called out in a loud voice, "How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood?" Then each of them was given a white robe, and they were told to wait a little longer until the full number of their fellow servants, their brothers and sisters, were killed just as they had been. This is referring to the witnesses and to those who've been killed previously. But it is referring to the witnesses. The witnesses are here right now. How are you going to say that this has already happened when the witnesses are still alive? They haven't been killed, and the Antichrist has not begun his reign. That doesn't happen until after the witnesses have testified. So I tell you all the time, you need to clean up your channel. You need to be careful about who you're listening to. You need to discern them with God. If you're listening to people who have hundreds of thousands of followers, that's an issue, guys, because people don't accept the message of God. So what that should tell you is that there are hundreds of thousands of people who are accepting that message. Should that be a warning sign to you or not? These things that are written in the seals were opened by Christ in the vision. They're not now being opened. They were opened in the vision, and so they were revealed as they were being opened. They were being revealed to John. Not all of these things have been fulfilled, and it would kind of be absurd to say the 5th seal was fulfilled on such and such a date. The word doesn't say that. What do you mean this is fulfilled on such and such a date? And why would that even be relevant? Why would it matter? For sure, it has to happen after the witnesses have been killed. Please, be careful who you listen to. These seals, by the way, are not happening in order. We know that because the 7th seal is setting off the trumpets, but the 6th seal is talking about what occurs at the time of the resurrection. So these are not happening in order, but I can tell you right now, the 1st seal, in which there's a rider holding a bow, he's given a crown, and he rides out as a conqueror, bent on conquest. That's not the Spirit of God. God does not need to conquer. That's the Antichrist. Hasn't happened yet. It'll happen next year. How do I know that? I know that because I am one of the witnesses, and I know when I started this ministry, when God anointed me for this ministry, so I know when I will die. And I know that when the beast rises to overpower and kill the witnesses, that he begins his reign. Therefore, I know that this is going to happen next year. Toward the end of the year, you should be able to see it rising right now. The Antichrist is the spirit of Satan, but many antichrists have come. Antichrists have come. These are those who deny Christ. These are servants of Satan. The kingdom of the Antichrist is counterfeit Christianity. Do these people deny Christ with their lips? Nope. They draw near to him with their lips, but their hearts are far from him. They are still denying Christ. They do not love truth. You should be able to see counterfeit Christianity rising right now. They do not love truth. They support things that are anti-Christ. like the genocide in Gaza. They place their trust in human kings whom they've made their Messiah. They ingest idols of false messiahs from movies like The Chosen and Passion of the Christ. And they are deluded by all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They observe the holidays of the world, calling them Christian, and disregard God's holy days. They do not observe his calendar, his appointed times, his Sabbaths, his new moons. They set up images like the cross to Tammuz, set up by the harlot Catholic Church. They lead people to the law of tithing. They venerate human beings. And when Christ returns, they will say to him, Lord, Lord, didn't we do all these things in your name? And he will respond to them, depart from me, evildoers, I never knew you. The next seals, second seal, I heard the second living creature say, come. Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. To him was given a large sword. The third seal, I heard the third living creature say, come. I looked, and there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the four living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and wine. Fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, come. I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following closely behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. So the second seal has been described as taking peace from the earth and making people kill each other. Has that happened? Do you know the exact date that happened, guys? I don't. It's ridiculous to claim that you know the date this happened. That's so extra biblical. Even as God has revealed the trumpets to me, I've never said, oh, I know the exact day this is going to happen. That's never been the way that God has talked to me, and I know God talks to me. Do not listen to people who do these things. The third seal is described as a rider holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then there's a voice coming from the four living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and wine. What does that sound like to you? It sounds like a tax, doesn't it? It sounds like a tax, and it sounds like slavery, and it sounds like people who are controlling the oil, the bread, and the wine. This tax is spoken of in Daniel 11. It is a tax that goes out to maintain the royal splendor of the harlot, of the Antichrist. It's called counterfeit tithing, guys. That tax, 10% of your wages that are going to some counterfeit church that tries to control the bread, the oil, and the wine, the doctrine of God, that's already happened. Do you know the date that happened? Well, probably somewhere around when the harlot Catholic Church rose, right? They love to tout that they're the OG. Let's give them credit where credit is due. So it started in the harlot Catholic Church. It continues in the prostitutes that bore out of her. The fourth seal. I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following closely behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. Well, we know where that is. Let's go to Ezekiel 14. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, if a country sins against me by being unfaithful, and I stretch out my hand against it to cut off its food supply and send famine upon it and kill its people and their animals, even if these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, they could save only themselves by their righteousness, declares the sovereign Lord. Or if I send wild beasts through that country, and they leave it childless, and it becomes desolate, so that no one can pass through it because of the beasts, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if these three men were in it, they could not save their own sons or daughters. They alone would be saved, but the land would be desolate. Or if I bring a sword, okay, so we already have beast, sword. If I bring a sword against that country and say, let the sword pass through the land, and I kill its people and their animals, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, if these three men were in it, they could not save their own sons or daughters. They alone would be saved. Or if I send a plague into that land and pour out my wrath on it through bloodshed, killing its people and their animals, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, they could save neither son nor daughter. They would save only themselves by their righteousness. For this is what the sovereign Lord says, how much worse will it be when I send against Jerusalem my 4 dreadful judgments, sword and famine and wild beasts and plague. The exact things that we saw in Revelation 6 in that seal. Yet there will be some survivors, sons and daughters who will be brought out of it. They will come to you, and when you see their conduct and their actions, you will be consoled regarding the disaster I have brought on Jerusalem. Every disaster I have brought on it. You will be consoled when you see their conduct and their actions, for you will know that I have done nothing in it without cause, declares the sovereign Lord. Well, we know that they're going to come out of it after the 45 days that follow the setting up of the abomination of desolation. That's when the resurrection is going to occur, somewhere in that 1335th day. We know this because Daniel tells us it. We don't have to be afraid of talking about days. We don't know the day or hour. We don't know if it's going to be the 1335th day or if there's going to be more days. But God does give us a number of days. He says the abomination of desolation is going to be set up in the temple on the 1290th day. Blessed is the one who reaches 1335 days. That's not extra biblical. That's biblical. You know what's extra biblical? Saying you know what date the seal was open. That's ridiculous. That's just delusion. So I personally do not know if this is going to happen during that 45 days. The 45 days meaning between the 1290th day and the 1335th day, because I know that that's a period of testing, or if this is also referring to part of the Antichrist reign. What I do know is that the fifth seal refers to the witnesses, and it has not occurred. The witnesses won't be killed until next year, later in the year. Please discern this message with God, and please be careful who you listen to.